Welcome back to another episode of E&Ftv. Today we are joined by Adrienne Hanna, founder and CEO of Right Revenue. Adrienne, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's lovely to be here. Thanks for asking me.
It's great because we actually were in contact a few weeks ago, and I've wanted to actually get you on the show for a little while. So it's great to finally have you on. Adrienne, today we're going to be going through obviously your background, how you discovered revenue management, but obviously what brought you to starting your own business. And then we're going to be going through a couple of questions and getting your thoughts and I suppose insight on certain hot topics that are around at the moment. And then finally, we're going to hear some really interesting stuff that's going on at Right Revenue. So I suppose let's kick it off. It'd be really interesting to understand your background. So please tell us a bit about you.
Well, I guess I probably didn't start the way traditional revenue managers, I think we all expect when you had to draw what a revenue manager looks like. You put them in front office or reservations and then they kind of progress through revenue management. That's not what I did. I kind of took this sort of weavy road. So I spent my first 13 years, so obviously telling you how old I am because it was about 100 years ago. But I spent my first 13 years working in travel. Never sold a holiday in my life, but was always contracting with tour operators. So out working with hotels to get them to be part of tour operators brochure, which is long haul, high-end holiday brochures all over the world. So I did that for about 13 years. So always had a passion for hotel side, understood about net rates and FITs, and I guess had an understanding of the language and the protocol that happened in revenue without even knowing that I was understanding it. And so I did that for quite a while, and then fell into revenue management purely by default. I was made redundant from a travel job, and a hotel group here said, can you come and work for us as a revenue manager? I had previously done sales for Hilton, so kind of went hotels, then sales for Hilton, and then went back into travel, made redundant, and then went back into this discipline called revenue management for this group of 6 hotels. And they didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't know what I was talking about. It was very open to say, I don't know what revenue management is, or, because I'm going back probably 18 years. So I literally weaved my way through revenue management, not really understanding what it was. And this was in the early days before Booking.com even existed. It was, active hotels in those days. Muddled my way through, and then they put a technology system, a software system into their hotels, and that blew my mind about how clever this system actually was. And then I ended up working for them, and that's where I find my real love of revenue management. I got to understand the number crunching and find my inner nerd, which I embrace and I love. And I worked for, it was Easy RMS. I worked for Easy RMS for a couple of years and spoke to the owner at the time, Paul Morgalen, and said, I'm selling this revenue management system, but there's a lot of hotels that don't understand revenue management and they're scared of it, and the system is wonderful, but it's got all these numbers and these acronyms that lots of hotels just don't understand. And I think, some sort of consultancy would be great if we could back that up before we did the sale. And over a period of 2 years, Paul eventually just said, do you know what, Adrienne, I think there's a gap in the market for revenue consultancy. If you want to go do that, go do it. And we'll keep your job open for you. And that was probably 15 years ago. So I did consultancy in revenue management, went back to Cornell University, got my revenue management qualifications, and just had some wonderful hotels in the UK and Ireland who were really interested in the discipline. And when I went in, I was just making simple changes, and suddenly their business was changing. So my understanding of revenue was growing, theirs was growing, theirs was affecting business. And it was a time in my life that I really enjoyed, loved it. But kind of leading on to that is why I started Right Revenue back in those days, which is almost 5 years ago. I was working everything on spreadsheets and trying to work out pace and demand, and I wasn't actually in the hotels all the time. So I felt I wasn't able to react to really good revenue decisions quickly enough. So I went to speak to the hotels that I worked with and said, what if I put this into some sort of software? And it was only supposed to be for me at the time. What if I just did this and it would allow me to look at your business, it would be able to react to change, and wouldn't this be great? And they all said yes. And then suddenly Right Revenue was born, and then it just literally snowballed. And now we have a full team, and we have investors, and we have a proper product, and we have wonderful hotels using the system. So I kind of did that travel, then sales, hotel, revenue management, and then by default just fell into revenue management software. But we're still very active in the industry. We have revenue managers that speak to hotels daily, and we give our hotels a lot of revenue support. So we're very, very close to the industry.
Fantastic. It's interesting because I've actually spoken to a number of people more recently in these sort of senior level roles, and their background is actually very varied to a point where they do have a sales background, which in today's market would actually be unheard of. We would always look, as you said, from a reservations or maybe a marketing exec, something like this, or a BI or an MI analyst or something. But sales was just not in the last sort of 5 years anyway. It's just not been the career path from sales into revenue management, because there's always been this sort of butting heads scenario. Revenue doesn't believe that sales understands what they do, and so on and so forth. And it's interesting because you're not the only one that I've spoken to very recently that's had this sort of sales background. And I really do believe that that's put, and I said this to the last person I spoke to about it, but I think it puts you in really good stead in terms of being able to understand the complexities of revenue management and the data analysis side of it, but also being able to communicate effectively, influencing skills, building relationships, building rapport, objection handling. That's one of the biggest things in sales. And I think that's actually probably put you in good stead. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, if I can maybe tell you a quick story, because for me, it just personifies everything you said.
Yeah.
I worked in Hilton Belfast. It was the first branded hotel to come into Northern Ireland back in the mid-90s. And I was working in sales, and we were very targeted, and I went out and got this big piece of business for Hilton Belfast, and it was 3,000 bed nights a year. And that was the largest contract that we had won at the time, and it was at whatever rate it was. And I came in, literally like ecstatic that I'd got this piece of business for the hotel. And I went to the revenue manager and I said, I've just signed this contract, and isn't this brilliant? And it's going to give us this amount and, bed nights. And he went, I don't want it. And I'm like, what? And he's like, walk the business. I don't want it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he explained to me, just sat me down. And he explained to me, he said, if you put this rate in at that many rooms on these nights when they want it, we're going to displace this business, because the contract was a government contract and they had a really low rate. And suddenly the penny dropped. I literally made it a point to sit with that revenue manager every day as part of my job. And at Hilton, at that time, I don't know if they do it now, but at that time, they allowed each department to spend a period of time in another department that they wanted to learn. And I was like, you need to show me about revenue management. I need to understand what skills I need as a salesperson to understand how to help the hotel make more profit. And that simple thing of walking that business taught me that not all business is good business. And he taught me about cost to sale, and he taught me about walkout rates, and suddenly this whole world of strategic sales opened up to me, and it just made me much better at my job. And that's why I think, if anyone who's listened to anything that I ever say, comment that I make all the time is revenue managers rule the world. Like, forget Jurassic Park, revenue managers rule the world. They have this bird's eye view of what is needed in sales, what's needed in marketing, what's needed in front office, what's needed in operations. And they have this overarching view of everything. I think that's really, really critical. And the hotels, for me, the hotels that embrace revenue management and actually get the best out of their revenue managers are the ones who give them that strategic role right at the top and sort of orchestrating everything else that's going on in the hotel.
I know for a fact there'll be a number of people that will watch this episode and scream at their screens going, oh my God, yes, that's exactly it. They could rule the world, because in fact, somebody else has actually said it almost word for word. So Susan Williams, if you are watching, remember to leave a down below. But no, I couldn't agree more. And what's brilliant is that there was an opportunity for you in that environment to actually be able to communicate with this revenue manager, because I think too often it's just told, no, it's not the right business, and then you move on. And then that's where that butting heads comes from, because of course sales are fixated on making those sales, getting that business in. And to you at the start, that would have seemed like the biggest contract ever. And then to have that immediately slashed from you, because you think, what? I don't understand. But that communication element comes in, and then it's obviously changed your mindset completely towards strategic sales rather than obviously sales in general. It's good. I mean, I think what we need more of in our industry is actually that education piece, is being able to go into not sectors, but functions. Because I'd actually think that revenue managers will actually do very well going into marketing. And in fact, revenue managers going into sales, to hear how they're communicating. So I don't think it's all one-sided. I don't think people should just be going to revenue management. But I also think there should be almost initiatives to get their people into it. Because I was speaking to a good friend of mine who works for a very, very nice, I think they call it ultra luxury hotel brand. And they've actually got every quarter or every biannually maybe, they allow their functions to actually, I suppose, apply, if you like, to have exposure to other areas of the business and sit with them and sit within meetings and everything else. By far, the most requested function was revenue management, which I think was absolutely brilliant and also eye-opening. I think that we need to actually be responding to that. I suppose this actually brings us on quite nicely to my first question. I mean, as revenue management does develop, and obviously along with that, the role also develops, especially in, I suppose, the times we find ourselves in now, how do you see, or in your opinion, from your experience, but also obviously your viewpoint, how do you see the role developing? What do you see the revenue manager being, I suppose, going forward?
I think what you said in the previous comment there about that dual communication is really key, Thomas, because I think all communication between every department in hotels is really critical, especially now. We are, for most hotels, we are operating with different segments, with different buying patterns, different lead times, different cancellation needs, and understanding who is coming into the hotel, why they're buying, what they're buying, and what they do in the property, what they do outside the property is critical. So I think the communication between each department has always been really important, not often adhered to, or not often hotels don't always strive to see that communication as critical, but I genuinely do see it as critical now. So I think the role for a revenue manager is to be more commercial. So I think what is really important in revenue management now, has always been, but I think is more critical now, is understanding that cost of sale. So what is each segment actually costing you to bring in? And I don't mean, the amenities in the room or the linen. I mean your true cost of sale. If you're using PPC to bring in certain leisure, that needs to be associated, even a portion of it, to your leisure sector. If you are doing, if you feel that there's corporate business out there, and there are hotels still getting corporate business, from, like, we have some great hotels doing some great things, like renting their bedrooms out in city locations to people who don't want a hot desk. So, I've always got room 101, that's my room, and I sit there 8 to 4 and I work. So there's, if you're looking at that corporate segment, what is that costing you to bring in? What cost do you need to equate for, potential COVID cleaning or whatever? It's understanding the rate that you're selling, the cost of sale, your profitability, and what each segment is actually spending in your hotel. And to do that, you can't be a revenue manager. And sometimes if I even speak to hotels now and I look at job descriptions for revenue managers, and you know this way better than I do, they'll still say, that they have to have good Excel skills and they have to understand yielding rates. Whereas actually it's way more than that. So I think the role of revenue management is at last seen to be strategic in the hotel, which is amazing. We've all been shouting about this for years. But I think the role is evolving more to a fully commercial role, understanding new feeder markets, understanding what happens if flights cancel from certain areas. So I think you have to have that bird's eye view. But you're right, it's communication from both sides, from all departments, but it's definitely more of a commercial role. And revenue managers need to be given the coaching, they need to be given the tools to do their job, and they need to be given a voice and allowed to have a voice at the management table. They need to take their seat at the head of the table and be allowed to have a voice. And I think getting revenue managers into that mentality of being confident enough to have that voice is something that we need to work on. But I think it's something that's really critical moving forward. That's what we need to become.
Completely. I honestly could not agree with you more. And it's something that I've actually been shouting about for some time is we all know revenue managers have always struggled to sell themselves to a certain extent, and as you said, job descriptions these days are almost copy and pasted. Yes, we need this, that, and the other, this, that, and the other. And it's not actually that. And I think there needs to be an education piece within businesses to their internal recruiters, to their HR teams, because the heads of revenue and directors of revenue, they're all wanting a certain thing. And I've had this. I've actually had first-hand experience of this. They're wanting a certain thing. And that sort of requirement just gets diluted and diluted and diluted. And then you're back at we just need a revenue manager. They need 5 years experience. They need to be London-based, whatever it might be. When in fact, I think you almost sort of said something before the interview when we were talking, but you had a candidate that didn't necessarily have that sales background, but in fact they could do the job and they were so good at what they did, they were so likable, they came across well, that in fact that person was actually right. So I think the job descriptions, there needs to be an education piece, but there also needs to be an understanding that if you want something or you want a certain type of individual, then put that down. Don't be afraid of going outside the box or just not doing it as it's always been done. Break some rules and start doing things the way you want to do it and the way you see the revenue manager role going forward. I know that's what I do, and I also believe that your point about training and development with regards to these other skills are massive right now. I think if any revenue manager who has found themselves, unfortunately, on the job market due to the current times, go out and start doing these courses, these free online courses, or maybe some courses that, if your budget allows, to be able to go do them. But rather than just focusing on, if you're a revenue manager currently, I wouldn't say go do another revenue management course. I would say go do a marketing and e-commerce course. Go do a sales course. Go understand what these other functions are doing, because the requirement now going forward, as you so rightly said, is somebody that's a commercial manager, not a revenue manager. Or it is a revenue manager, but their expectation of a revenue manager has got so large now that it encompasses everything. You use the term unicorn. It just is. It just is. I think it's interesting as well, because I actually do, this is just a completely aside point here, but I actually ran a soft skills sort of workshop with revenue managers for a hotel management company last year, because the head of revenue said, look, my guys are great. They are brilliant at revenue management. They don't need that help there. But what they do need is help with regards to building rapport, building relationships, objection handling, being able to influence and be able to be confident in what they're saying. Because at the moment, the relationships just aren't there, and the credibility almost isn't there. The stats are there, but almost the human being isn't. Does that make sense? I don't know if you agree with that.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think, again, if we went back to that little stick drawing of what does a revenue manager look like, I think for too long that revenue manager has been in a darkened room with just reams and reams of reports. And, you know, it seemed to be that nerdy person in a dark room just calculating numbers. Just feed them coffee and, you know, and let them run reports and send them once a day and ta-da, you know, rates have changed and they're just going to report on figures. If that is the revenue management role that you see within your hotel, then frankly, you need a little bit of a shake or a big shake. Because that revenue management role is so much more. And we need to give, you're absolutely right, those revenue managers the soft skills to say, look, you have all this great data. Kind of two things that you've mentioned I'd like to probably call out. One is, if you have made your revenue manager redundant at this time, shame on you. Shame on you as a hotelier. Your revenue manager is actually the most important role that you should have, the most important function that you should have in your business. How on earth are you going to get out of this mess if you don't understand your business changes, your change in segmentation, all the things we've talked about, your costs, your sweet spot on pricing and your lead times and all of that? Who else is going to do that? Who else is going to add all this magic to your business but your revenue manager? So get your revenue manager back in, and genuinely, the hotels that we work with, the hotels that kept their revenue managers employed, not on furlough, but employed during the last 3 months, are the ones that are coming out of this in a much stronger position. But also giving your revenue manager the tools to do a job. Now, yes, we have a software solution. I'm not here to pitch that. There are many software solutions out there in the market. Choose one that works for your business and allow your revenue manager to allow your software system to run all the data. And the tagline that we use in the business is, our software does the smarts so that you can do the strategy. So let any system that you have do the smarts, run the numbers, get the data, and then let this wonderful revenue manager actually influence and impact your strategy moving forward. And you're absolutely right that the confidence that revenue managers have, and they're not all like this, but you know, traditionally revenue managers were seen as, you know, put them in a cupboard and they were a little bit nerdy and they can't really sit at the management table and whatever. That's so not true anymore. We've got brilliant, bright, enthusiastic, passionate people working in revenue who can use the data to back up their decisions and are quite happy to sit at the management table and say, that's why I've made that decision. Yes, it worked, or actually I made that decision and it didn't work. So we're not going to do that again. It affected our ADR by doing that, but at least we tried it. We know it's not right for our market. We're going to move on. At least giving someone the tools to do their job and the environment where they feel comfortable actually communicating their strategy is really, really important.
Completely. And I think now more than ever, when people, unfortunately, in these larger teams, you know, the people that are left feeling a bit anxious. They are feeling a bit, oh God, my whole team's changed. My management structure's changed. I don't know really what's going on anymore. To then have to be this confident commercial person that can do anything and everything, and everybody wants them to focus on all sorts of different elements of the business. There's a lot to be asked for from a revenue manager right now. And I know from obviously working in this industry, but also from being quite passionate about the development of it, this is the time where revenue managers are shining, but we need to give them the opportunity to shine. We need to give them the opportunity and the development opportunities, but also support where needed, but also communicating with them, transparency with them, give them what they need, as you said, whether that's be software solutions or whether that be a brilliant, I suppose, management style to allow them to step into the shoes that they need to. Because I think too long, they've been an afterthought. You know, sales have always been there, marketing has always been there, but revenue has always been that sort of, I don't know, shy little brother that comes into the meeting, head down, and then sits down and hopes that nobody talks to them. And if they do, they just reel off a load of data. Whereas I see it as something completely different now. They are strong, they are commercially minded, and they are the people that will drive business forward. As you said, I'd probably agree with you. I think shame on you if you have got rid of your revenue manager, if you are a single property or whatever. I know times are hard, but as you so rightly said, they're going to be the ones that will drive things forward. It's as simple as that.
I actually interviewed myself, a wonderful lady a few weeks ago from a software company, and she said it's not always about cost. If you're looking at your bottom line and thinking my revenue manager is going to cost me X and I'm not sure if I can afford that on my payroll, what's the cost of ignoring? And I think that's something that we have to consider. What is the cost of ignoring what that person can bring to your business? So it's not always about the bottom line at all. And anyone that's speaking in the industry at the minute is talking about this is the time to invest in technology. This is the time to invest in great revenue and management practices. This is the time to invest in great people. And the hotels that actually see that are the ones that are going to come out of this with a fighting chance.
I think it comes down to return on investment. Your return on investment on a revenue manager is an incredible opportunity to build your business and drive it forward with simply, yes, don't get me wrong, there will be a cost involved, but what's the gain, within a matter of months? What is the absolute gain there? If you get somebody brilliant at what they do, that's really switched on, that is creative, that is passionate about what they do, and they can look at your business and find all the ways that it can be grown, the return on investment is almost, well, it's tenfold. It just is. But no, I think we're definitely on the same page. It'd be really interesting to understand what's been going on with Right Revenue. What's been happening with you guys?
Well, we've had, obviously when everything happened, it was devastating. And we were in the lucky position that just maybe 48 hours before the hotels were forced to close. We had no idea they were going to be forced to close, but we went out to all our hotels and said, use our system for free. We're not going to charge you. We're not going to come back and ask for a bill. Use our system for 3 months, and I got that little hashtag, see you on the other side, and that's what we did, and that stood us in good stead, and we've been there to support our hotels through that. We were also lucky that during those couple of months, and that we had some really strong strategic revenue managers still in their roles. So we used that time. I had to take the decision to take everything that we were planning to develop within the 3 months, because we always have our work plan developed out. We took that and put it to one side and spoke to these. We actually spoke to 24 revenue managers and said, okay, what do you need? Tell us what you'd like us to develop that's going to help you come out of that. So we came up with 5 things with their support, and those are the 5 things that we've developed over COVID, put into the system and have released of it. And a lot of it is calculating cost of sale and understanding, perfect price points for rates and demand and lead times and all of that. So we've got this lovely little suite of reports that hotels can hit the ground running coming out of COVID. But we also had our best ever sales quarter, which is phenomenal for us. And again, that is, we've had some amazing hotels approach us and say, tell us about your product. We'd like to understand revenue management. And we've been so lucky because we're working with some incredible hotels already. We've picked up some fantastic new customers. And they just bring this breath of fresh air into the business. And because we are so hands-on with our customers, we speak to them all the time, we understand their business. We've just had a really exciting 3 months. So we've lots going on there. We've been doing our own webinars, which have been great. We've had some wonderful people, and by the way, we will have you on. So we've been doing those a lot. we have a great relationship actually with HOSPA, and we've developed a revenue management certification through HOSPA to try and educate our wonderful revenue managers and give them that accreditation that a lot of them like and want and need. And it's we're actually putting our own Kirsty through the revenue management qualification at the moment. So we've got some really lovely things going on. We've got some great plans for the future. We are recruiting, as I said to you, we're looking for that wonderful unicorn that can be a revenue manager and sell as well. But yeah, it's actually, once we got over the initial shock, and I'm not saying that it was all rainbows and unicorns during those 3 months, it definitely wasn't. It was tough for everyone, and we had some tough decisions to make. But actually, we feel that we've come out of this in a stronger position, understanding our customers better, reacting, because we had to literally go in and adjust all our algorithms because no amount of machine learning was going to pick this up very quickly. So we've spoken to every single hotel. We've adjusted the algorithms for every single hotel. We've got some new exciting AI coming into the business over the next couple of months. But, kind of strip all of that down. What's most important to us is the relationship that we have with our customers. And we have some hotels doing phenomenally well, and we're supporting them through that. And the ones that are struggling a little bit more, the more city centre hotels, the urban ones, we are supporting them through those revenue decisions and just trying to be there for them. So no, it's actually been a really exciting time. We've done lots to the product, lots to the team, and we're excited moving forward.
It's fantastic to hear. It's one of these things where, well, we said this, but you have to adapt with the times. And if certain areas of the business are struggling, then we have to obviously look at other areas. But I think it also says a lot that a firm like yourselves that are focused on revenue management software, obviously support, the fact that you guys are so busy right now shows that so many businesses do need their revenue management functions. They do need them. So the guys that obviously don't come to businesses like yourself, don't get me wrong, but the people that do have revenue management teams in place, that's what they're needed more than ever right now. I've been talking to a lot of people and sort of in the more senior end of the market, and they were saying, nearly all of our properties are closed, but I'm busier than ever. And it just is. We need them, and we need them where they are. And in fact, we need to support them. But it's so great to hear that you guys are doing well. It's great. I think it's testament to obviously what you guys are doing as well, that you've actually got brands approaching you. I think it's a brilliant thing to hear in the market right now, because we hear so much, rightly or wrongly, we hear so much negativity right now because everybody is being impacted. But I do think there are positives to take from the disruption, as we've said. So, no, fantastic to hear that you guys are doing so well, and long may it continue. I'm happy to say that we've been doing pretty okay. We've been surviving, still placing people as and where possible, and trying to build up the brand. So, as I said, if you don't adapt, you'll die, and I'm not ready to go just yet. So, no, Adrienne, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad we've finally been able to get you on. But no, thank you so much.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. And do you know what? Maybe you'll find me that unicorn. So unicorns, please apply.
Down below.
No, listen, it's been a pleasure. I love the subject. I love revenue management. Hospitality is in my blood. And if I have any opportunity to wave a flag for the wonderful revenue managers out there, I'm very happy to do it. So thanks for the opportunity.
No, thank you very much. And Edwards and Finn are very much with you. Edwards and Finn and Right Revenue, waving the flags for revenue management.
Hey!
No, thank you again. Guys, please take a look who's on next week's episode now.